just beginning. The pen's in my hand, ending unplanned. Staring at the blank page before you. Open up the dirty window. Let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions. Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. No one
Thank you for watching The Edge, the talk show by women, for women, and about women, and always lots of neat guys, and always animals and dogs and cats and kids too. So thank you so much for watching today on this liquid sunshiny day. Excuse my hair today. I tried the best I could. We're going to have a really good show in store today. A very, very nice gentleman by the name of Dr. George Youstra is going to be here. He was the Undersecretary of Education for President Ronald Reagan, and we have lots of really neat things to talk about with him today. What is character education? And I'm so ready to get into that. Deborah will be here today, and we will be talking about how big a problem is domestic violence. We'll also be talking with Debbie from Manor Decor. She always has lots of exciting things to talk to us about decorating on a budget. We're going to a break, and when we come back, we will have Dr. George Youstra with us today.
reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your
Hello, my name is Gene Stallings, and I'm standing in front of one of the homes at Rainbow Omega. As a parent, I worry about what's going to happen if Ruth Ann and I die, and there's Johnny. You know what I'd want him to do? I'd want him to come to Rainbow Omega. He can live out his life in a serene environment. Sometimes we do things just because it's the right thing to do. Helping Rainbow Omega is the right thing to do.
Need a break from the humdrum burger routine? Then visit your local KFC store in Calhoun County and see what the Colonel's cooking up for lunch or dinner. The KFC buffet features the Colonel's famous original chicken, extra crispy and roasted chicken, fresh vegetables, and delicious homemade cobblers. Or, if you're in a hurry, take home a bucket of chicken for the family. And don't forget, your Calhoun County KFC stores feature a delicious breakfast buffet on Friday and Saturday mornings. KFC of Calhoun County, where we do chicken right.
When you're on the go, it's good to know there's a Young Oil Company Grub Mart nearby. Whether you need a fill-up, a snack, or something cold to drink, you'll find it all at your local Grub Mart. Clean stores, friendly service, and pay at the pump. It's all waiting for you at your home-owned and operated Grub Mart. For quality gasoline and the best of convenience, visit the nearest Young Oil Company Grub Mart. There's a Grub Mart near you.
She turned around and left the cave, and I'm standing there by the pool of water alone, like I am in all of my dreams. And it just brought up a whole bunch of issues that...
Più, że nie ma atramentu.
What?
I wtedy możemy zacząć dopiero pracować.
Using a broker you can't understand doesn't make much sense either. That's why Edward Jones speaks in a language you can understand, so financial decisions get the attention they deserve. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Welcome back to The Edge, the talk show by women, for women, and about women, and lots of really neat guys too. We have a very special gentleman with us today. His name is Dr. George Youstra, and he was actually Special Assistant President Reagan. Tell us a little bit about what you did when you were with President Reagan.
Well, I actually was over in the Department of Education. My wife was in the White House during the Reagan years, but I was Special Assistant to the Secretary of Education. I spent 4 years with Terrell Bell, who was the Secretary of Education in the first Reagan cabinet, and then 2 years with Big Bill Bennett in the second Reagan cabinet. Those were great years.
Those were. Now, education is so important, and there are a lot of things that factor into a child, developing a child in education. Let's talk a little bit about that. I know discipline is very important.
Well, frankly, when you talk about discipline, you can't talk about discipline, in my opinion, without talking about character. Right. And character has to do with an internal system of right and wrong. And that's where things so often break down. My boss, William Bennett, if I can quote from him, used to say that teaching character begins and is a must in the home. It starts with the early childhood years, from infancy to age 6, And then he goes on and talks about how important it is to memorize things like even the Scripture, and at an early age. And then he often talked about the fact that a school must have character if it's to transmit character to its students. And, you know, first teachers and principals and college professors and so on have to be willing to articulate those kinds of ideals.
But it all begins at home.
Oh,
And a lot of sense, in the busy lifestyles we have now, we want to carry that over to the teacher. And sometimes, and that's just not a good thing. You have to have that support system at home.
If we want to know why sometimes people accuse schools of failing, it's so often because the powers that be in our school system are not willing to be committed to that type of thing, those morals and those ideals. Oxford's Mary Warnock said so long ago, you cannot teach morality without being committed to morality yourself. And you cannot be committed to morality yourself without holding that some things are right and some things are wrong.
Absolutely. Now, there are 11 principles to building the character of education. And let's discuss a few of those. The principle number 1 promotes actually the core ethical values, as you discussed early, are the basis of good character. So it all begins with good character.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And of course, that's something that has to be articulated home early on. We want to know why schools have problems and schools are failures. It's because our schools are reflections of the community, and the community is a reflection of the parents. And so often we want to blame educators. We want to blame the administration of a school or the school superintendent or the principal, when the bottom line is it starts at home.
Absolutely. And we have to have that want to take care of our kids from, like you said, the very beginning.
Yep.
And that comes in the form of memorizing, the talking about the Bible, all the basis.
That's right. The Bible says, thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee. And let's face it, the bottom line is, if character has to do with an internal system of right and wrong, you better have some basis for that.
Absolutely. Starts with a good foundation. And then principle number 2 defines character to include thinking, feeling, and behavior. What's your thought on that?
Well, once again, it has to do with what children are seeing with those that are above them so often. I think of the average school, and I think about the fact that the articulation of the authorities of a particular school has so much to do with what young people are seeing. Somebody has said that there's no other way except that administrators and teachers, professors at the college level, have to know the difference between right and wrong, and they have to make a difference to live it in front of those children, in front of those young people. Bill Bennett used to talk so much about the fact that character of an institution, a local school, a college, a university, is determined by the kind of place it is. And he used to talk even about things like the physical and moral tone of a school premises. Can you imagine? And in other words, school effectiveness studies have shown us over and over that the importance of clean and orderly schools is so important. You show me a school that's graffitied, and I'll show you somebody who's failing along the line up above the student.
And you know something, when I was going to school, the parents and the teachers and the principal all worked together for a common cause, and that was to build character within that student.
Yeah.
You don't see that anymore. When a child gets in trouble at school, well then the parent wants to blame the teacher or the principal.
Somebody has to be willing to take responsibility. I saw a statement one time, and it stuck with me. Life is choices. Choices have consequences. Make right choices. If moms and dads don't teach young people to make right choices, well, how do they expect a school to take care of that kind of a problem? That's one reason why I'm greatly impressed with Christian schools, schools across the country that are putting a special emphasis on that moral education. We need to get a little bit more of that in other areas of education as well.
Absolutely. My son went to Trinity Christian Academy, at Trinity Church, Trinity Baptist Church, and that was a really good choice for him. And he got those beginning processes in his life, and so of course now he's going to seminary. Turned out to be a really good kid.
Wow.
But the teachers there worked with me. I know the very first teachers meeting we had was with me and the teacher and the principal, and we were told up front, you know, there was discipline there. And there was nothing harsh, but discipline there, and so your kids need to know that up front,
Yep.
along with the parent.
That's so true.
So why do you think there's such a lack of discipline?
It starts at the top and comes down.
It does. Well, why do you think there's such a lack of discipline? You know, we're so into being politically correct that we miss out on a lot of good opportunities for our children to grow and flourish.
Well, that's exactly right. And it's a shame that we want to make certain that we're fair to everybody. But let's not forget that your child and my child, those are our jewels. And moms and dads better learn to take that responsibility and go out of their way to make certain that this whole business of character begins at home and goes from there.
Absolutely. Now, how can we create a caring school community?
Well, I think first of all you have to have parents who want their child there. You know, so often we're forced into a particular district or a particular whatever. And for example, you made a choice. You remember, life is choices. Choices have consequences. Make right choices. And that's why I think it's important that if parents are going to be convinced that they're doing the right thing, they have to want to have their student in a particular school. That's why I'm so committed to choice in education. You know, the thing that made this country great was free enterprise. And the cornerstone of free enterprise is competition. And for so long in American public education, public schools had a corner on the market. They didn't have to compete with anybody. And so it was mighty tough to look at standards. For example, for 20 years until the book The Nation at Risk came out in 1983 during the Reagan years, it showed how the college boards were going progressively down. Obviously, if that was true, then more money doesn't necessarily mean better education, because the converse had been happening for many years. Education spending was going up, college boards were going down. And so competition has been brought back in many states at the high school as well as the college level in the form of the V word, which to some people is a nasty word. You talk about vouchers. But it's school choice. If moms and dads don't have an opportunity to get their young person into the right school, they have a choice with a voucher program. Florida, for example, under Governor Bush has done some great things. You know, they're on the cutting edge. They have a series of scholarships. They have 3 scholarship programs, K through 12. And for example, one of them, if a school is not doing the job, all schools are graded. If the school is a D or an F school, a parent has a right to move their young person to another school, and the state will help them financially. What a boon that is to minorities particularly, and people who can't afford to go to certain schools.
Well, why do you think we're seeing such a trend for homeschooling and for private schools?
Well, because homeschooling has a special teacher that has a special relationship with mom and dad. It's interesting, during the Reagan years, we did a study. We got 750 homeschooling parents to agree to cooperate with 750 public school districts. And the agreement was that the homeschoolers would follow their curriculum, but they had to take the same standardized tests that are given in those 750 public school districts. And I'll tell you, the homeschoolers tore them up. They were 2 and 3 grades at every level above the local public schools. Because they had special teachers, mom and dad. Now, not every mom and dad can do homeschooling, but if mother and father are committed to doing that, I think it's important that they have the teacher of their choice again. You know, they have to make that responsibility, knowing which way they're going to put their children.
Well, you know, there were concerns about that. You know, how will the children react? They need to be around other children. But the homeschoolers I have met, children don't seem to have a problem at all relating to other people.
No, the studies all indicate that homeschooled children are more mature because they're dealing with adults all the time than the average person. A lot of people have the idea that if you do homeschooling, you're not going to be properly socialized. The child is not going to be properly socialized. That's not what the studies indicate. In fact, it indicates that children who are homeschooled are way, way ahead of the game in terms of socialization.
Absolutely. I have 2 nieces and a nephew who have been homeschooled. And the funny thing about it is the little girl actually knows how to speak Spanish because she listens to mom teach the older sibling.
Sure, sure, sure.
So there are benefits for the other children.
Absolutely. I think every parent has to make, again, decisions. Life is choices. Choices have consequences. Make right choices. And so if mom and dad are convinced that homeschooling is the way to go and they're willing to make that kind of commitment, not everybody can do it, then I think they ought to go with the homeschooling thing. And of course they can always inject their particular religious persuasion with respect to character and things like that.
Absolutely. Doctor, what is your opinion? You know, as a parent, we don't want our children to suffer the consequences of a bad decision. What do we need to do as parents?
Well, again, it begins with education. We have to do some reading. We have to do some checking. Are we really concerned? Are you parents really concerned with where your children are going to go to school? And sometimes you have to make really supreme sacrifices in terms of financial well-being. I know parents who can hardly afford it, but for one reason or another, the public school in their area is not what they want it to be. And I'm not here to make fun. I'm not here to contradict what's happening in public education today. I'm simply saying parents have to make the ultimate choice. And sometimes they have to sacrifice. I know parents who've made tremendous sacrifice taking 2 jobs so that their child can go to a private school or Christian school. And of course, the myth is out there that private schools are only for the wealthy. That's not true. For example, in the state of Florida, the 28 private colleges did a study in conjunction with the state universities of Florida and found out that the mean income of the parents of the private schools was below the mean income of the parents in the state universities.
Well, I'll have to tell you, we had the students from Trinity Christian Academy on the show last week, and I'm telling you, it's very impressive. The children recited the Declaration of Independence, I mean, without missing a word. I mean, they were very, very self-motivated. Have you found that to be true?
Oh, yes, and isn't it wonderful that, of course, I'm a traditionalist. Isn't it wonderful that there are schools in this country where they're not ashamed for young people to learn the Declaration or the Gettysburg Address or some of those old-fashioned things. I used to hear Bill Bennett say that this is the dumbing down generation, that this generation is dumb, but the next generation is dumber unless parents are willing to step in. I look back at the McGuffey Reader. Folks like to laugh at the McGuffey Reader, but you know, 100 years ago, 4th and 5th graders were memorizing the Charge of the Light Brigade. They were reading James Fenimore Cooper's Leather Stocking Tales. You know, I challenge some of the professors looking at the seniors at universities today. How many of them have read the Leather Stocking Tales? About the only thing they know is they've seen the movie The Last of the Mohicans.
That's why you hear the movie. And calculators have just ruined us.
Yeah, I'm still a firm believer that everybody ought to memorize those times tables. And of course, as a Christian educator, I'm convinced that memorization is still an important part of education. The Bible says, "Thy word have I hidden in my heart that I might not sin against thee." It's a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. And I believe that, I really do. Memorization of the times tables and so many other things. And listen, if we're talking about character training, what does it hurt for our children to be memorizing the Bible? When I had teenagers, my nest is long since empty, but all of my children memorized Scripture. People could make fun of me, but that's okay. That's okay.
Nothing to make fun there. Now, one other thing I've noticed too, in not all children, but in this new generation particularly, is the lack of common sense. Do you think that is due? I'm sure that's due to what we're not doing for our children. Yeah. It's just there seems to be a lack of just common sense.
Well, again, I think so much has to do with being properly grounded. It begins back home, let's face it. And I have to admit that so often we put an emphasis on common sense when it really isn't common sense. I can remember, and I'm sure you can remember too, people would say in our history reading to Columbus, Columbus, you don't want to go too far that way. You can see where the sea ends, and you're going to fall right over the end. Why, in those days, it was just common sense. I can remember my grandmother saying, now, George, you be sure you wear your galoshes, because if you don't, you're going to catch a death of cold. Why, it was just common sense in those days. But, Grandma, bless your heart, colds come from a virus, not wet feet. And so some things that we blame as common sense are just kind of earthy, pithy little pieces of information. But it's true. Again, moms and dads have to be willing to sit down and articulate their values and ideals, and that's what tends to give people the right kind of common sense.
Is it ever too late?
No, I really believe that bring up a child in the way he should go, and he won't depart from it. He may take some detours along the way. And of course, there are three things that as an educator and as a Christian I accept. One of them is I believe in absolutes. When I taught at Michigan State, some of my colleagues thought I was a nut because they believed everything was relative. No, I'm sorry. I think some things are absolutes. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's an absolute. The second thing is the depravity of man. Many of my colleagues believe that everybody is totally good there. But my Bible says there's none righteous, no, not one. I believe everybody has a propensity to do good. But, you know, if we would accept that a little bit more carefully, we would look both ways crossing the street and some nut wouldn't be running us over. And the third thing is the supernatural. As an educator, I believe in the supernatural. We say we're Christians. You know, Christ believed in the supernatural. He believed in a real heaven, in a real place called hell. He believed in demons. He believed in a real personality called the devil. Nowadays, as an educator, if I say that too loud, somebody's just liable to lock me up. But that's what my Bible says.
But those are the same people who believe in spaceships and aliens.
It's interesting how Hollywood picks up on that and makes lots of money along the same line.
Well, before we close, let's talk a little bit about your background and what you're doing now.
Well, I tell people I've been a Southerner all my life. First 18 years in the south side of Chicago.
Oh, wow, that is the South.
And then I spent 25 years in South Carolina. I was a high school teacher for 10 years, a high school principal for almost 10 years. Then I was a college dean. And then in 1981, I joined the Reagan administration as special assistant to the Secretary of Education. Had 6 great years in Washington. And then I was approached by the search committee, and I became the president of Clearwater Christian College in Clearwater, Florida. It's a 4-year SACS-accredited liberal arts college. And we had 15 great years as president. And you know, you get to a certain time, you say, it's time for somebody else to do this. And so my successor was a young man. I was his high school principal. He finished his doctorate at the University of Georgia in Business Administration. He's our new president at Clearwater Christian. We're denominationally non-aligned school in the evangelical persuasion, and there's something about the small college, big family atmosphere. We have young people from 38 states and 12 foreign countries, and can you imagine we have young people that come all the way from Alaska and California to study in Florida.
Wow.
Well, I can understand why they'd leave Alaska to come there.
Yeah, I can too. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We're going to have to go to a break, and when we come back, Deborah Shear with Domestic Violence will be talking with us.
Thank you, Donna.
I'm Everett King with ERA King and ERA Guyton King Real Estate, and I'm here with exciting news about how to look at a house. We have brand new and exciting technology called visual tours, and from this day forward, all of our listings will have a visual tour. Matter of fact, our new campaign is called Every Listing Deserves a Tour. Here's how it works. Go to one of our websites, click on Visual Tours. Every single listing we have from this day forward will have a visual tour. Click on the hotspot, and you'll be able to go into any room in the house. it's just like being with an agent. When you find your perfect house, you call one of our professionals, and we'll be happy to help you through the process. In the meantime, go to the web and click us out.
You can get a cheap drive-through wash anywhere, but since you deserve the best, you deserve the quality you get at your only full-service car wash in Northeast Alabama at the Great American Car Wash in Anniston. From the moment you enter until you're on your way, you know that every detail is important and won't be overlooked. We know that time is important to all of us, so it's important for you to be able to get your car done. Even if it's lunchtime, you still have time for lunch. It's the Great American Car Wash. When we do more than just clean your car, we send you on your way feeling as good as your car does.
And where is this fun place? The Victoria in Anniston.
Welcome back to The Edge, the talk show by women, for women, and about women. And one of my favorite ladies, Deborah Shear, is here with us today with Second Chance. So how was the day going for you so far?
Good.
Liquid sunshine outside? Bad hair day. I've been fighting with my hair
Yeah, that's
all
why
day.
mine's back, because I definitely have a weather head.
That's
when
the neat
it's
thing
humid
about-
outside, it's like, choo. It's not...
Yeah, but you always look good.
Oh, gosh, thank you. You're sweet. You
Now,
do.
what are we going to talk about today?
Well, you know, I was trying to find something different to talk about, and I was going through some of my stuff, and a question that I'm asked, not frequently, but occasionally, that I think is very pertinent is, especially having to do with my victims, is common law marriage. I think what happens in some situations is the perp tells them, well, we're common law, so you can't do this and you can't do that. So I found this really cool article in the paper, and it's about common law marriage. So I thought that we would just go over this because a lot of people have questions about it. And you hear all the time, if you live together for 7 years, you're automatically common law marriage. Have you heard that?
I've heard that.
That is not true.
Oh, really?
There are some criteria that have to be met in order to be considered common law, and they are, number one, you intend to be married. You can live together for a week. If you intend to be married, then you are considered common law.
So it's 1 week.
I mean, there's no time. There's no time minimum. There's no time maximum. Time is not part of the picture at all when it comes to common law marriage. You have to intend to be married. You have to have the mental capacity to be married. You have to hold yourselves out as husband and wife. And you have to begin the relationship in a state that recognizes common law marriage. I believe Alabama is one of those states.
Alabama. Okay. All right.
So those are the criteria for being considered common law.
Okay. So someone who's an abuser of the partner at a point in time, well, then they are actually held liable, right? Even though it's a common law.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it doesn't make any difference what your relationship is. Well, I mean, it does as far as domestic violence and some of the services that you might get. You know, you do have to, it has to be an intimate partner.
But as far as the legal world is concerned,
if you meet those criteria, you are common law marriage, and you have to get a divorce. Is that not strange?
Wow.
You have to get a divorce.
That is a strange law.
And it is up to the judge to decide on whether or not he is the ultimate authority on whether or not you're common law. I mean, you might fulfill those criteria, but once if a victim wants to get away from a perpetrator and she, has met those criteria, she has to go to a judge, and he will decide, okay, yeah, you are common law, and you have to get a divorce.
Now, Deborah, you know my thought process on this. Okay, if you're not married, well, if you're not married, why can't you just walk away?
If
you're having this problem,
if you just met somebody and you're just living together because it's convenient, but you don't have a joint bank account, you don't intend to get married, you're not engaged, you've never presented yourself as being, intending to get married, then just walk away because you're not common law married. It doesn't matter if you've been together for 25 years.
Oh my goodness.
If you have never had any intentions of marrying that person, and this goes for the male and the female. I mean, it's not just from the female point of view, but of course, I speak for victims, which are typically women. But if you know, say if I lived with a guy, but I didn't really ever want to marry him, because say I was already married to somebody else, and I had a bunch of kids, and I had some good income coming from that spouse, that ex-spouse, and we didn't have joint bank accounts, and we never intended on getting married. We were just kind of living together because it was convenient and everything was cool, and we were together 25 years. I can walk away anytime I want because we're not common law.
Okay. Now, Deborah, do you see some of the common mistakes being made by the victim in domestic violence as if it were a marriage?
Well, see, the thing about it is, from my understanding, the few victims that I've talked to, they have been told, not only by their perpetrator, but by a lot of us, because a lot of us don't understand common law marriage, that you are common law married, and so you can't leave. And I think that I don't know whether they're holding it over their head because they believe that or because they want the victim to believe that, but I think a lot of victims stay because they believe they are married. So now that's why I wanted to do this, so they know now that if they don't meet these criteria, just walk. Get away from them. But if you are common law married and you have assets, then you definitely want to go to an attorney.
Well, so you're getting into the situation again where, even though you're not actually married, where, things have to be divided.
Yes. I mean, if you are considered common law, you do have to go through the same exact processes that you would if you had a ceremonial marriage. You have to go to an attorney. You have to divide up assets. Yeah, so it would be in your best interest if you do meet these criteria to go to an attorney. And let me give a website, because there's a website that you can go to that can give you some more information. It's www.aaml.org. And that is for the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, and that's their website.
Okay. So there can still be a problem in common law marriage, the same problems as
a ceremonial marriage.
Wow, okay. Wow, okay, you make sure you go to this website because this is very educational.
I thought it was too. Like I said, I haven't heard this question a lot, but I get it often enough, and I finally was like, okay, I need to know the answer to this because I need to give these women some information. And when I found this article, I thought it was really interesting.
Well, how big a problem is domestic violence in a common law marriage?
Most of my victims are not ceremonially married. Most of them are common law.
You're kidding me because you're...
But when I say common law, I even hesitate to say common law because they may not be common law. They may just be living together.
Well, what's the difference in common law and living together?
That's criteria.
That's it.
Whether you intend to be married, whether you have a joint bank account, the main thing that I got from this article was, do you present yourself in the community to others, family, friends, and others as a married couple? Because a lot of times with common law people, well, not common law, I hate to say that, with people who live together, they refer to each other as husband and wife. Just because it's easiser.
Okay, and this is
and if you do that, then you are considered common law because you have presented yourself in the community as husband and wife.
Well, I'm going to ask, I'm sure a lot of people out here are wondering, why not just go on ahead and get married?
Money sometimes, convenience.
And in their mind think it's easy to walk away.
They do. That's exactly it, Donna. You're exactly right. They think, okay, well, I'm not really married, so I can just walk if I want to. And that goes for both genders. That goes for the man and the woman. They both think, well, or that not a lot of times, but a few of my clients, they already married.
Well, if they bring children into this, are they considered automatically as married, basically?
Yeah, I mean,
all the same children in.
All the same things apply to them. You can't. Yeah, I mean, they're their kids. They're joint custody kids.
Do you find this trend happening more in rural areas?
I do. I'd say probably 75% of my clients are not ceremonially married to each other, and yeah, and they've been together for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. I mean, I had one lady who she'd been with her partner for 25 years and they weren't married, but she referred to him as her husband because she said, I'm 50-something years old and I'm not going to refer to him as my boyfriend. So. And back then, this was, one of my very first clients. I had no idea about this stuff, So
how do the children relate to this? Okay, your parents have been together, but they have never been married. They've been together 25 years. How do the children relate to this?
I don't know if they know any difference.
Yeah.
Especially in the rural communities, like you said, that a lot of their friends probably, I'm just assuming, a lot of their friends, their parents aren't married.
It's just, as our doctor just said, it's decisions you make.
Absolutely.
But you know, when you make a decision, then the children are also apt to make that same decision.
Right. And you know, a marriage license is only $15, I think, or $25. I'm not sure what it is. So I don't really know if it's the money. I don't know what it is. Like you said, it might be just the idea that, well, I can just walk if I want to.
Do you find that it's usually one partner more than the other who doesn't want to be married?
Mm-mm. No, it's usually
joint decision.
Yeah, it's usually pretty mutual.
Because I can see that happening for the perpetrator doesn't want to be married and have a piece of paper.
And you know what, that may be the case. I guess I always assumed that it was both of them, because I haven't really had a client who said to me, oh, I really want to be married to him. You know, it's never been that. It's always been, yeah, we live together.
Okay, now we've talked about why in a marriage a lady may stay with a gentleman, you know, because of a marriage certificate. So if someone is mistreating you and you're not married, why would you stay with that person?
Same thing. I mean, there's really...
It's a power struggle?
Emotionally, I would say there's probably no difference in someone's mind as far as commitment goes. You know, if I'm living with my perpetrator or if I'm married to him, I would imagine, and I'm speaking for my clients and I don't know this for sure, but I would think that they probably see themselves just as committed to that relationship, whether they had a ceremonial marriage or whether they were together for 5-10 years and had 3 or 4 kids. You know, there's really no difference, I don't think, in their minds as far as that goes.
Well, we've seen
and it's
this
fear
happen.
that keeps them together anyway.
It's what?
Fear.
Fear keeps them together.
Fear keeps her there, basically.
Keeps her there.
Fear. There's a few financials. I mean, there's a few F's. Fear, financial, family, friends. And there's another one, but there's
so it's
the
possibility
5 F's.
one or the other has the other one thinking they can't make it without the financial support.
Absolutely. Well, you know, most of my victims don't have a job, don't have a car, don't have a checking account. A lot of them don't have a high school education. So they are, you know, they're
so
pretty
again,
much
it's
stuck.
education.
They're stuck. Yeah, you know. Unfortunately, just like the gentleman you just had on, education is paramount to freedom. I mean, I think it's synonymous with freedom and choice. You know, as long as you've got that education, he can't take that away from you. And at least graduate from high school. You know, at least you'll have that, because there's jobs that you can't even get unless you have a high school education.
Absolutely.
But I've had a couple of clients who have gone on to go to college, and it's just so, I can't tell you how
it's so liberating for that person.
Because they've got a chance, you know. They have a chance with those kids. They can do something. And they're a good role model. So, yeah.
Now, you have some success stories. Can we talk about some of those?
Yeah. I have another success story. We talked about one last week, but I have this older lady. She is, gosh, how old is she? She's probably in her mid-50s. She's just wonderful. She's just the greatest lady. And she, actually, her daughter was her perpetrator.
Oh, wow. So we talked a little bit about that a couple of weeks ago.
Her daughter,
we're seeing that growing trend.
Now, although she's not an intimate partner, obviously, you know, she lived with her.
But still, it's one person having power over another.
And it's a family situation. You know, they lived together, and the daughter got hooked on drugs, and the daughter had a perpetrator. And so the mother was living with the daughter. The daughter was being abused by the perpetrator and on drugs, so they became abusive to the mother. Anyway, she got out of the situation, and she went into shelter, and she was there for about 3 months. Got a great job, moved into a beautiful apartment. She had been abused by her first husband, her daughter's father, for 10 years. So that's all she'd ever known was that.
So the daughter thought the mom was just someone to perpetrate.
Yeah. And so the mother moved out.
So why are we seeing this trend? I mean, we're seeing more and more children are just not respecting the parents. You think it's out of respect, disrespect?
I think it's both of those. Lack of respect for yourself.
Being politically correct.
You know,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's all of those things. I think it's a lack of respect for yourself to be abusive to your parents. I mean, that's just...
Because I was raised, you respect your parents.
Me too. There wasn't even a question.
I mean, it's just what
there wasn't even a question. It was like when my parents said no, that was it.
And it wasn't just the parents. I respected my school teacher, the principal of the school.
Donna, it's just our age. You know, we were just born in that generation that it wasn't even a question. I mean, I don't remember as a child even being, it never even occurred to me to be disrespectful or to I don't know. It's mind-boggling now because it's just.
So what's going to happen to this generation? And it's not everyone, because I see a lot of good kids out there, a lot of motivated kids, but I think it stems from the parents caring enough to take care of the child and to train them.
Unhealthy parents. You know, these parents are overworked and stressed out, and
and grandparents are raising the kids too.
Yeah, and they're too old to do that. You know, parenting and discipline takes a lot of hard work. It's real convenient not to do that. You know, it's more convenient to just let the kid do what they want, I think.
Well, do you think, and you always want to be friends with your children, but you see a lot of people who are friends with their kids instead of being a parent.
You have to be a parent first and then a friend. You know, there's just, kids need boundaries, they need role models, they need someone to look up to, and who, you know, your role model is your same-sex parent. So my role model was my mother, my brother's role model was, you know, my father. Your role model is your same-sex parent. That's who you look up to, that's who you learn from, that's who trains you, that's who teaches you. And if you don't have a strong role model, you can see how it just becomes cyclical, and it's just like,
it becomes a vicious cycle.
You have a horrible role model, and then you're a horrible role model, and then your kid, and then, you know, it's.
Well, someone came to the store the other day. It was a child and a grandparent, and the child wanted something. I don't remember what it was, but the grandparent just looked right at the child and said, "No, you're not going to do that." And I just thought, good for you. And then we were talking, and she said, "I'm raising this child."
Wow.
So, I mean, what a great role model. Yes, that's wonderful, because a lot of people feel sorry for the grandkids. You know, you see a lot of that. They feel sorry for the grandkids and they let them buy with things.
But ultimately, you're doing your child a disservice by giving in to them, because when they get older, that is not what life is about. Life is not about, you know, you cry for something or throw a fit and you get it. That's not how life works. Life works. There's consequences to your behavior. You get certain things and you don't get certain things. And if you teach your child from an early age, hey, you're not going to get that.
Well, then they know, and they know they have to work hard for what they have.
It's a privilege to get certain things. You know, I see parents all the time who just give their kids things, and, you know, the kid just acted out and then they give them something. I'm like, you're rewarding that child for misbehaving? Are you crazy? You know, what are the consequences to their behavior if there's never any punishment, if there's never any discipline for this behavior? When they get to be older, they're not going to know. They're not going to understand.
And Deborah, you just made a great point too about rewards. When should you reward a child?
When they behave the way they're supposed to. Appropriate behavior gets rewarded. Inappropriate behavior does not get rewarded, and that is
it's a spanking.
No, I don't believe in spanking. I don't believe in spanking.
Well, how can you punish without spanking?
You take away a privilege. What, you know, you sit down with that child and you say, okay, what is the one thing that you, not in the situation, beforehand.
You have to know that up front.
You have to know that up front. You sit down with your kid and you're like, okay, you really love your bicycle, don't you? You really love your, whatever, your headset or your, whatever it is. Okay, so when they misbehave, that gets taken away.
That's a great idea.
And the thing that's so important with punishment and reward is it has to be immediate and it has to be consistent. In other words,
but you can't go through this warning, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that.
No, and these parents too.
And never do it.
Who, when we get home, you're going to get it. Well, that doesn't work with a child. I'm talking about little, you know, I'm talking about toddlers and little children. You can't punish them, you know, an hour down the road or after you've done your shopping or after you've taken them to the movie. When we get home from the movie, you're not going to watch television. Well, basically, you're rewarding them because they just misbehaved, but you're still taking them to the movie. They don't go to the movie. They go home. And they get punishment, immediate punishment. I know that sounds so harsh. I was having a conversation with somebody about this the other day, and they're like, and I said, you know, that's what I learned in college, immediate rewards and immediate punishment. That is what's going to...
And immediate gratification when they do something really well.
Absolutely.
And bring in that good report card.
And parental approval is the most powerful reinforcement there is for a child. They
have to feel like they're being approved.
Their parents' attention is so paramount to anything that you can give them. You know, giving them a hug or a kiss or a pat on the back or a smile or a verbal reward is so powerful for a child. If you can do that and catch your children behaving well.
And reward them for that.
And when do we give our kids attention most of the time?
When they've done something wrong.
When they've done something wrong. Do we ever give them attention when they're not misbehaving? Never. Do we ever go up to them and go, you've done a really great job, I'm so proud of you. You and little Johnny are playing so well together. They never get attention for that, ever.
So that's why they do things wrong sometimes.
Because they
want
don't
attention.
care what the attention is, whether it's negative or positive, they don't care.
As long as they get attention.
As long as they get parental attention and approval, that's all they care about. And whether you're yelling at them or screaming at them, they don't care. At least you're interacting with them. Whereas if they're playing in the room by themselves for an hour and they're doing great, and then they, get into a fight with their brother and sister, after that whole hour of being really great, when do you come in the room? After that,
when they've done something, when they've been in a scuffle.
So if you go in occasionally and just go, you guys are doing a really great job playing together, it's just amazing.
That speaks volumes.
And it will prevent them from acting out negatively. So that's my whole take on disciplining in kids, and that's what I've learned. Whether it works or not, I don't know. I'll find out soon enough.
Well, Deborah, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about domestic violence.
We haven't been talking about that.
I chose Antioch for my place of worship because of the worship. Because here I'm able to lift my hands or close my eyes or however it is that I want to worship. I enjoy the atmosphere at Antioch. Every time you walk in the door, somebody is there to greet you with a smile and with a hug. You can come in here and you can worship God with everything that you want to, and I like that about Antioch.
You have to experience the worship before you can enjoy it. Antioch Baptist Church.
Here's what you need. Healthy hometown cooking prepared just the way you like it. The Porterhouse Cafe is the perfect place to meet your friends for lunch, then bring your family for supper. The Porterhouse is located just off Highway 78, across from the mall in Oxford. There's a separate large room just right for your events and meetings, plus a steaming hot food bar and full menu of favorites like steak, chicken, and shrimp. And don't miss the shrimp po' boy. Oh man. The Porterhouse Cafe. Real cooks fixing real food for real people.
Aniston Orthopedics, the premier orthopedic group in Calhoun and surrounding counties for over 35 years, located in the RMC Tyler Center. The Orthopedic Center of Excellence houses offices, casting and MRI services, physical therapy, and the Wound Care Center all under one roof. With 8 board-certified surgeons, they can diagnose and treat all sports injuries, workers' comp claims, and perform minimal invasive surgery for hip and knee joints. Aniston Orthopedic Associates, serving all 3 major hospitals in the area. Call today for your appointment. Marvin's Building Material and Home Center, your hometown store, offers a product selection that can handle any home improvement need at a guaranteed low price. Marvin's sales associates are knowledgeable and eager to help you with your toughest job. With 23 convenient locations in the Southeast, there is a Marvin's near you. So don't forget Marvin's, your hometown store, making it easy, one project at a time.
For cleaning supplies, press 2. For food and toys, press 3. If you need assistance, please stay on the line.
When your pet care is at hand, don't you like the personal attention you get from a local store? GJ's Pet Supplies is a locally owned and operated store in Calhoun County. We've been here for over a decade, and not only have we grown to love your animals, but they seem to like us too. GJ's Pet Supplies on Highway 431 in Aniston, Alabama.
Welcome back to The Edge, the talk show by women, for women, and about women. We're going to talk about positive reinforcement in raising your children. There are all kinds of neat ways you can do this.
I love to talk
and
about
stuff like that. And not be so negative all the time.
Absolutely.
And kids like positive anyway, other than negative. It's a better way to grow up.
I think what I hear a lot from parents is, well, that's what my parents did. My parents spanked me. My parents beat me with the belt, with the stick. I mean, I hear all these horror stories about, how these adults who, these people who are adults now, how they were raised. And I say to them, well, just because everybody did it doesn't mean that's right. There are other ways to discipline your kids.
But you know something? I had a belt that when Brad was growing up, but I never used it, was the thing about it. I mean, he would just see it, and I would point at it, and I would say 1, 2, 3. And people used to think I would beat him up, but I didn't. I never used it. He just saw it, and he would know what it was for. So was I doing the wrong thing or the right thing? Turned out to be a good kid.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But some people, they have it there, and the kids, it's the fear of.
Yeah, that's my whole thing. Do you want your kids to be fearful? I don't know. I'm not a parent yet, and people tell me all the time.
Just wait.
Yeah, they're like, oh, well, that's real easy for you to say, And of course, this is all stuff that I've learned in college. I haven't applied any of it yet, and I don't. I have a couple of friends who kind of think the way that I do, but the thing about positive parenting is the name. Positive parenting. It's not about negativity. It's not about threats. It's not about hitting. It's not about screaming or yelling. It's about reinforcing your children positively so that, and this is kind of something, positive parenting is really important to start from the very beginning, because what's unique about it is the most powerful way to manage a child's behavior is through positive reinforcement. In other words, if you are not constantly, because you don't want to do it constantly, because then it becomes ineffective. But if you reinforce your children positively, like we said, catch them being good, reward them for their good behavior.
So actually what we're doing is changing our line of thinking.
Because why do we do what we do? Because it's convenient, because it's easy. If you come home from work and you're stressed out and you've had a bad day and your kid's misbehaving, isn't it a whole lot easier for you just to whack your kid on the butt for them to stop? It's temporary, but it works. And it's very reinforcing to a parent, because you're stressed out and you're just like, whack! And then you're like, okay, well, I feel better. It makes you feel better to have released all that tension. Your kid's not screaming or crying or misbehaving anymore, and so you feel better. But it's
you're
very
using
temporary.
that child for a punching bag,
and you're using them really to make yourself feel better, because it doesn't make the kid feel better.
You've released some energy.
You've released that tension, that frustration. You're sick of hearing that kid cry. It shut him up temporarily. But it's real temporary.
Well, I'll have to tell you what scares me is when I'm in the mall sometimes and you see people walking around with their children, they'll give them a good whop or scream at the child in public. That has to be embarrassing, but it doesn't seem to faze the children.
Because it probably
I would have been embarrassed,
all the time.
Yeah, so they hear it all the time. So screaming doesn't do anything.
It becomes ineffective.
So how can these parents turn it around?
While they're walking around with their kid, and their kid is, because why does a child misbehave? They just want attention. So if you've been shopping for 2 hours and you haven't even looked at your child or acknowledged your child or done anything for your child, haven't stopped to get him an ice cream to reward him for being good, because they've been being good for 2 hours, they haven't done anything, or look down at them occasionally and go, you're doing such a great job, thank you for behaving so well, mommy's proud of you, keep this up and we'll go get a treat. You don't acknowledge them. What are they going to do after 2 hours? They need something. So what are they going to do?
They're going to start whining.
They're going to start whining, misbehaving, doing something just so you'll acknowledge their behavior, acknowledge their existence. So in order to prevent that, just give them some attention occasionally, acknowledge them, look down and say, you're doing a great job, let's stop and get you something to drink. Do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you want to go look at something that you want to look at for a minute, and then we'll go back and let mommy finish her shopping?
Well, it has to be embarrassing for the child. Okay, they're growing up and they're hearing this publicly.
Yeah.
The parents screaming at them in a mall setting or whatever setting, and they're hearing this. So what are they going to do to their children?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The same thing. Because you're not teaching. You have to teach your kids how to behave. When we go to training for work, we're trained to do all sorts of jobs.
And again, it's in education.
Yeah, we're not trained to be parents. Parents aren't trained. They don't go to any sort of school.
No, I don't think Brad came with a manual.
Yeah, they don't. You hear all the time, well, you have to get a fishing license, but any darn so-and-so can be a parent.
That's right.
But you train to do all these other jobs. What is the most important job in the world?
It's being a parent.
So, get some training, learn some behaviors, learn some skills, learn some tools. Don't do what your parents did if it didn't work. If you were humiliated, if they beat you, if they did whatever they did to you, why are you going to do it to your kids? Because that's what your parents did. Because that's easy, because that's convenient. It's not easy and it's not convenient to do what we were just talking about, occasionally take some time out and go, you're doing a great job.
So if you're trying to get a child's attention, the best way to do that would be to catch them doing something good. That would be a shocker, right? And
absolutely. Oh, it'll blow their minds. And it'll blow everybody else's mind because nobody does that. Everybody does the opposite. Everybody gets frustrated and they get upset and they scream and they yell. But if you don't teach your child, if you don't explain to them before you go to the mall, okay, this is what I expect of you, this is what I don't expect of you, these are the consequences for good behavior, these are the consequences for bad behavior. Teach them, tell them what you expect of them, let them know ahead of time what the rules are. Don't get to the mall and then shop for 2 hours and drag your kid around and then beat the crap out of them because they're crying.
And scream and yell at them.
They're kids.
I mean, it's just...
They're children. Teach them. Tell them what you expect of them. Let them know ahead of time.
I think it's all communication. We expect the child to know, and we're not talking with them.
Well, I mean, how's a child going to know? We're the parent, we're the trainer, we're the teacher. We have to teach them how to behave. Where else are they going to learn it? Where do they usually learn it? Somewhere they shouldn't learn it.
Yeah, and then they're picking up bad behavior. They've learned from someone who doesn't know what they're talking about.
So if you teach them,
that's where trouble comes.
What you want them to know, if you teach them what you believe is good behavior, if you teach them adaptive, appropriate behavior that's socially acceptable, they will know straight up ahead of time, this is what is expected of me. And then the consequences are, are then, okay, well, Mommy told you when we left that if you didn't do this, this is what would happen. So when you get home, that's it. Those are the consequences. There's no discussion.
But you have to do what you say you're going to do. And I'll tell you this, my parents never forgot. If they said something was going to happen when you got back home, I don't care if it was 5 hours later, they did it.
Mine too.
So, I mean, you know.
Yeah. Consistency, boundaries.
So it sounds to me as if we as parents need to be educated more.
We need some
much
training.
More so, yes.
We need some training.
You can do that.
Well, I'm not an expert in the field, but it's something that fascinates me, and I think it's, this is what I tell parents. If you're beating the crap out of your kids, when your kid gets old enough and they have a kid, they're going to be beating the crap out of your grandchildren. Do you want that? Do you want your grandchild to be beaten with a belt? Because most grandparents are like horrified. They're like, no one's ever going to touch my grandchild. Well, if you're beating the crap out of your kid, guess what?
Yeah. Well, let's give you another twist. Okay. Now, sometimes parents, and I've seen this happen, parents have good intentions and they're correcting their children in a good way, in a very good, nice way. They're not beating the children. And then grandparents come along and they don't want the children talked to. They baby the kids, and so how do you handle the grandparents?
That is so hard. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's hard.
Now I'm talking. These are from strict. I'm talking about my mother on this one. Because
you're talking about like giving in to them.
Yeah, they give in to them and just let them do all kinds of things at their home. Because my mother, for example,
that's a tough one.
They'll let their grandkids get by with all kinds of things, and then when you get the kids back home, then
they're rotten.
To. Yeah.
I know.
So what do you do?
I know that's a tough one because you don't want to. I don't know. I don't know what to say on that one. I mean,
well, what if you have ground rules? What if the children know?
Yes.
What if you write it down on a blackboard?
I was going to say the only thing that you can say is to your parents, to the grandparents, these are the rules, and this is what we want, this is what we don't want, and
sometimes the grandparents don't remember. Apparently, they've forgotten what it was like to be parents.
And this is a free-for-all. It's like, woo, I can do whatever I want to.
So they soften them. I'm planning on doing that. When Brad grows up, I'm going to feed my grandkids full of chocolate and send them home.
I know. That's why I say it's so hard for me to say, well, you're not going to be able to see your grandkids if you don't do this and this and this.
Oh, and I see, that to me is, you're not going to be able to see your grandkids. So that's taking something away.
If it's something really serious, super serious, that you find, like I know somebody who...
that would have been punishment for me, because I really loved going around my grandparents.
Whose grandparents won't put them in their car seats and belt them up. Now, that's a safety issue. That's very, very serious. That's not like, feeding them full of sugar. That's, That's two totally different things. That's a safety issue. That's really tough. So in a situation like that, something really definitely has to be said. But other than that, I'm not going to say because
Well, Deborah,
My
we're
parents
going to
are
have to
grandparents.
close today. She's going to be a grandparent one of these days.
Yeah.
And I want to get in touch with her when she is.
Yeah.
We're going to have to call it a day. And we've really appreciated the show, you guys watching the show. And stay tuned again tomorrow. Thank you for being on the show, Deborah.
Thank you, as always.
Good show.
Thank you.